Quilt kits, everything you need in one convenient package at a premium price for a quilt that's going to look like every other quilt made from said kit. They are convenient, and I know the work of planning and cutting takes effort and costs money. What if we did it ourselves? What if we have all the convenience of a kit made with fabrics we already know we love for the cost of just a bit of our own time? Hi, I'm Amy and I make things. And in today's video, I'm making my own kits and showing you how to get the convenience of a quilt store right from your own stash. Hang around, let's see how it goes. Hi guys, last week we talked about the decision process. I pulled my colors. Now what? Now comes what I call cutting and kitting. Purchased kits come in basically two varieties. The kits like this one that I bought on sale during that Fat Quarter Shop December sale days. The dang smileys hit me right in the nostalgia. But you get the pattern and the fabric you need and you go from there. And pre-cut kits like this one. This is the Alaska kit from Laundry Basket Quilts, where everything is pre-cut and all you have to do is sew. This is more the type that I want to talk about today. When I prep kits, I do all the decision making and fabric pull that we talked about last week, and then I try to get myself as close to a pre-cut, ready to sew kit as possible. Using the AccuQuilt system makes this easier, and we'll talk more about AccuQuilt in a bit, but even when not using it, I aim for a ready to sew state. I batch as many tasks as possible, and I cut everything for a quilt all at one time. In fact, I try to cut and prep for several quilts at a time. This allows me to work quickly, but also ensures that I have something to work on for times when I just want to sew fabric together, not make a bunch of decisions or make a mess pulling fabrics out or looking for patterns. Having kits ready to sew makes it easy to just go sew. The bigger reason I do this is so that I can do all of one type of action at the same time for multiple projects. If I'm already in the fabric bins or drawers, it doesn't take much more effort to pull for 2 or 3 projects rather than just one. The same applies to cutting, prepping, trimming blocks, etc. You get it. If I can stay in one mode for many projects, I can move faster, and that's important to me. It's also important that it saves me time and energy with cleanup, resetting, lifting equipment, or moving things, especially if you have to work in a very small space or you have to set up and put away your sewing machine every time you work. It's also great for retreat packing. So here's what I did for remixed geese. It's super simple as all the blocks are exactly the same. I'm using the AccuQuilt 12-inch cube dies, number 4 and 5, and 10-inch squares. Since I need 4 geese units of each pair of colors, I did it like this. Okay, here I'm testing the grain line. It's important that you feed your fabric through the AccuQuilt machine along the lengthwise grain so that your pieces don't get distorted by the very slight compression as it goes through the rollers. I cut the half square triangles for the wing pieces of the geese, and then I position my main body, the main triangle of the geese, on the other quarter square triangle board. And you'll see me, I cut all of the wing pieces for 6 units, 6 colors, 6 pairs of colors, because I can feed 6 layers of fabric through my AccuQuilt machine, and I stack those 6 colors up on the quarter square triangle board, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then run those through. And you'll see here in a minute, I start it, and then I put my left hand in what they call the no-no zone, which is the part you're not supposed to touch, and so it backed itself out. I just ran it through the other way. Sometimes that works, sometimes it messes them up. This time it worked. So now I've got all my pieces together, and in just a few minutes, I've got 24 geese units completely ready to go. If you are using the 4 at a time method outlined on the pattern, this is where you'd cut all your squares, draw your lines, and keep them all together ready for the sewing step. Let's talk about the AccuQuilt for a minute. The number one thing I get asked is, isn't there a lot of fabric waste? Yes and no. There is a bit less efficient fabric usage, meaning I'm creating more small scraps that need to be cut down later. But as far as actual waste, like the bits I throw away, it's about the same as cutting bigger and trimming down. I know we've all seen people, throw fabric across the die and cut from the middle, but that is not how most people actually work with fabric. The same way most of us wouldn't cut from the center of a fat quarter without, really good reason. And here's the thing, there's going to be some waste. There's some waste with rotary cutting as well. But as an accessibility tool, the waste, or rather scrap generation, is a trade-off for me being able to continue quilting at all, let alone at the pace that I want to. I try to make the most efficient use of the fabric as possible, and I call it good. Here's what I had left from cutting all the geese units. These little strips from the half square triangles, which will go in my pile of cut to 1.5 inch squares, and then these chunkier bits from the quarter square triangles, the center of the geese, that I'll cut into strips or strings or 2.5 inch blocks. And the thing is, it took me about 50 minutes to cut over 200 flying geese units, and that's the magic of the AccuQuilt. There's no way on my hip I could have stood and cut all these geese units at all, let alone in under an hour. The AccuQuilt as an accessibility tool is what allows me to quilt. It's what's allowed me to participate in the Indigo Way Mystery Quilt-Along. I used my 6-inch cube to cut all these tiny pieces for units. Now I just put all these geese pieces on my tray, and I'm ready to sew. If I'm kitting up lots of things, I use Ziploc bags. Sometimes Ziploc bags inside Ziploc bags. I like the 2-gallon size for everything, and I put everything in the bag, including the pattern or my notes. If the pattern is digital or from a book, then it's ready to go. For instance, this kit that I'm working on here, based on the color cube card, today I'll cut all the pieces and pack them in a zip bag with a note about what pattern it belongs to from the Jelly Bar book. My puppy got hold of that one. And it's ready to sew when I am. You can see all of my tabs in the book. I'm pulling lots of kits today. I'm using the color cards and I'm having a great time. So this week, think about your pattern and how you can prep a ready to sew kit. If you're using remixed geese, it's pretty easy. All the blocks are exactly the same. If you're using a different pattern, you have to examine it and see what you can do to get everything ready for step 1 of sewing. Sometimes a pattern cannot be fully prepped because you have to cut sewn block A to create finished block B or what have you, but you're smart, creative people. I know you'll figure that out. With any pattern, I aim to do as much of the cutting and prep as I possibly can up front. And oh, this is true for borders too. If the quilt has borders or sashing, go ahead and cut them now. Maybe just the long pieces, you don't necessarily subcut, but so they're waiting for you. Borders and sashing are prime places where projects get stalled, but if it's ready and waiting for you, the barrier to entry is almost eliminated and you can just keep sewing. That's it. That's all. This week, get your kit prepped, and next week we'll talk about sewing and pressing and labels. Yes, because you asked, next week I'll talk a bit about labeling your quilts and how I'm going to label this one. Thank you guys so much for all the well wishes for Max. He's a goober, but he's going to be fine. It's no wonder he has ear trouble. I mean, look at these ears. Guys, he's basically a house elf. He doesn't like to be in the studio, but Whiskey loves it. She likes to lay like right behind my chair while I'm sewing, which is super inconvenient, but she's so sweet. I just make the best of it. Let me know in the comments if you have a quilting buddy that likes to keep you company while you sew. I love to hear about everybody's furry babies. As always, anything I can link is linked below in the description box. While you're there checking out those links, please hit those buttons, like, subscribe, share, and thank you so much for that. I'm so glad you chose to spend part of your day here with me. As you head into the long weekend, which is supposed to be cold here in Texas, like 13 actual cold, not Texas cold, remember that you make the world more beautiful just by being in it. I'm Amy, and I'll see you next time.